What's up, everybody? This is HBT with the Straight Up Wrestling Show. I'm here tonight, man. Gonna do a show, talk about the wrestlers, man, the hit makers, people that I think, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinion, especially experts around the country, people who have watched wrestling for years, will agree that these are the wrestlers, man. The wrestlers that I'm about to talk about, they are the hit makers. And when I'm talking about hit makers, I'm talking about wrestlers, man, that was pretty much almost guaranteed to give you a good match every time out. Every time you go to see these guys live, man, or you saw them on TV, these guys will give you a good match, man, no matter what. So that's pretty much what I'm going to talk about. I'm not exactly sure how I laid it out, but I think I said the hit makers, wrestlers that gave you a good match every time out, man, are always was gonna give you a good match. So basically, that's pretty much what I'm about to talk about, man. Talk about the hit maker. So let me start off. I'm gonna start off, man, at the jump. Somebody who I would consider a hit maker in wrestling, and that's my number one guy. That's Nature Boy Ric Flair. I will call him the hit maker. I've been watching Ric Flair as a singles wrestler since 1975. Also seen him in tag teams, and this man has always given me a good match, man, to watch. He has always delivered. Very few times in my lifetime that I've seen Ric Flair in a ring when he didn't deliver. I mean, that's very, very short. What's up, Z1? My man Z1 is in the house. Appreciate you joining, Z1. But yeah, Nature Boy Ric Flair, man, I've seen him take on the best of the best. I mean, his resume cannot be matched in professional wrestling history. And I've seen him against a lot of great competitors. And I'm going to start off all the way back to Chief Wahome Daniel. The first time I seen him wrestling Chief Wahome Daniel in 1975. Great matches that these guys put on. Great feuds. I used to see these guys at the Greenwood Memorial Auditorium when I was 8 years old. Saw a lot of great feuds, a lot of great matches between these two. And when they in between time when they had a feud going on in 1975, that stopped. Then they had another feud in 1977. That stopped. And they feuded again in 1981. And then they feuded again in 1983. And each and every time, man, this feud delivered 100%. So Nature Boy Ric Flair, man, I'm going to go ahead and talk about him first when I talk about the hit makers. He is definitely one of the hit makers, man, that will always give you a good match every time out. Only a few matches I've seen from Ric Flair in my lifetime where I was like, and I'm talking about just a few that wasn't A caliber matches. And I will say, definitely the last match that he had, his last match, and some of the things that he did in WCW when he was really down, and Eric Bischoff was pretty much trying to hold him down. He really didn't deliver there, and sometimes in WWE he really didn't deliver. But not over 95, 97% of his career, he always delivered. And when he wasn't delivering, when he was in WCW and WWE, he was past 50. This man always was giving us at least a C plus B minus match. Ric Flair is devastating, man. And in his youth, in his prime, I say between 22 from 22 to 40 22 to 47, 48, he always delivered. He never disappointed. Whether I watched him on TV or watched him live, he always gave you a good match. So yeah, I got my man Z1 on here, and anybody that comes in, I'll be basically talking to everybody that comes in. This is late night. I'm doing this thing at midnight. I started yesterday at around 10:30 doing the show. Was it 10:45 or whatever? So I had a lot of people, man. But I don't expect to have the same number tonight. But I'm gonna go ahead and give me just a moment. I'm gonna go ahead and do what I do. I'm gonna go ahead and deliver a good show as much as I can again tonight, man. But right now, I'm trying to find my show live. Find my show live, and I'm coming up with what me and Chris just done. I don't know why that's happening, but I am. I'm coming up with me and Chris's show. So bear with me, guys. I'll be right there. I'm just trying to get this thing ironed out. And Z1, I appreciate you sticking in here with me, man. But yeah, Nature Boy Ric Flair. Yeah, Z1, did Rick ever win the tag team belts? Yes, he did, and we will talk about that in a minute. I talked about that last night. Like I said, when I talked about the realities of wrestling today. Talked about that last night. We got into that. I talked about the top tag teams that I've ever seen, and the most devastating tag team that I ever seen team up together. They didn't team long, but I will tell you this, and I'm telling you a 100% truth. And Z1, you probably need to go and look them up. Ric Flair and Greg Valentine, and they beat the Anderson brothers, Gene and Ole Anderson, for the World Tag Team Championship. And man, that was a devastating tag team. They were so good they had to strip them of the tag team titles. That was the best tag team I ever seen put together, and they took the belts away from them. It didn't last long, but man, these guys was brutal. They was young, both of them young. I think they won it in 1977 from the Anderson brothers. These guys was young and they knew what they was doing in the ring. They was devastating. World Tag Team Champions, man. They was I never seen anything like it. They was great. Another tag team. I'm gonna get off a little bit of Ric Flair here, but outside of as far as short tag teams that should have stayed together, outside of Doom, I would say Ric Flair, Greg Valentine, and then I would say Doom. Those two teams lasted too short. Too short. They could have went down as the greatest tag teams of all time if they would have stayed together a long period of time, like the Road Warriors, like the Steiner Brothers, like Rock and Roll Express, like Midnight Express, like Demolition, like the Rockers, and things like that. They didn't stay together that long, but as far as for a short term, Ric Flair and Greg Valentine is the best tag team tandem I've ever seen, and I'm throwing that in with the Road Warriors, the Steiner brothers, and the Anderson brothers. The Anderson brothers? I put the Anderson brothers as the number one tag team of all time. That's the best tag team I've ever seen. But Ric Flair and Greg Valentine for a short period. Now they didn't stay together long, so I'm not gonna say they was the greatest tag team of all time, but they are the best that I've seen in that for a short period. They had a short run, maybe 2 to 4 months, man, and they were just, oh gosh, it was incredible. It was incredible, Z1. No doubt about that. But yeah, Ric Flair, he's a former World Tag Team Champion, NWA World Tag Team Champion. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, okay, cool. But Nature Boy Ric Flair, man, talking about somebody delivering great matches. Those matches with Ricky Steamboat that started in 1977 all the way up into 1981. He feuded with Ricky Steamboat on and off. Best matches I ever seen. His matches in the 70s with Ricky Steamboat, some of those matches, a lot of those matches went 90 minutes long. Best matches I ever seen in my life. Not Ricky, but Ricky Steamboat, Ric Flair, and Rick Steamboat. These guys put together great matches. You talking about Hitmakers every time out, man. It didn't matter where they wrestled. If they wrestled in Richmond, Virginia, if they wrestled in Greenville, South Carolina, they wrestled in Charlotte, North Carolina. They wrestled in Buffalo, New York. They wrestled in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. They wrestled on WYFF TV. They wrestled on WSPA TV. Wherever they on WSPA Superstation. Whatever time those two got together or wherever it was, those guys put together spectacular matches, man. And that all they did was propel Ric Flair on up the ladder. Ric Flair, think about the next person, man, that he had great tag team matches with. His old tag team partner, Black Jack Mulligan, who's 6'8", 325, 335 pounds. Ric Flair was able to put together great matches with him. I didn't know if that would happen because, I look at Styles and I'm like, this guy's such a big guy. But him and Ric Flair together, man, those guys, they was former tag team partners. He's one of those guys that put Ric Flair in the place that he needed to be. He was one of those guys that elevated Ric Flair. But then they ended up feuding. They wasn't tag teams no more. Ended up feuding. And you're talking about a feud, man. These guys put together some incredible matches. Not as good as the matches he put together with Barry Windham, Black Jack Mulligan's son. Wasn't good as those matches, but they was very good. Black Jack Mulligan was a brawler, and Ric Flair had to step up his game and be a brawler, and he put together some outstanding matches, man. Every one of those matches I have to say was an A with Black Jack Mulligan. Next person that really put Ric Flair over as far as him having outstanding matches against was Ernie the Cat Ladd. Ernie the Cat Ladd and Ric Flair, man, put together some great matches. I was afraid for Ric Flair. Like I said earlier tonight when we had that podcast We ended up talking about Brock Lesnar. We talking about Brock Lesnar and Gunther. Talk about a man that was intimidating. Ernie Ladd was the most intimidating in history, most intimidating wrestler probably in history, outside of Andre being so big. And then you have somebody like Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar and Ernie Ladd is on the same level as far as intimidation, that intimidation factor go. Those two guys probably on the same level. Ernie Ladd probably a little bit more fierce because Ernie Ladd, man, was usually a heel. And I mean, Brock Lesnar, he's rarely a heel. Sometimes he is and sometimes he's not. He put fear in his opponents. But Ernie Ladd, man, he scared the crowd. He scared everybody. This guy, big, 6'9", 330 pounds, former football player, and hard hitting, didn't take no mess. One of the greatest wrestlers I ever seen. And I have to say, he's probably the best black wrestler I ever seen. Man, big ups to Ernie Ladd. But Ric Flair held his own against Ernie Ladd and pretty much defeated Ernie Ladd in that feud, which shocked me. And it was very good, very competitive. But man, Ernie Ladd and Ric Flair, they put together some spectacular matches. Never disappointed. And this was in 78. And this is a few years after he started his uh, his feuds with Wahoo Daniel, Ricky Steamboat, and then Blackjack Mulligan, and then it went to Ernie Ladd, man. So Ric Flair continued on. And in 1979, Ric Flair got into a feud with the newcomer in Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, Roddy Piper. Man, you talking about a feud. You talking about something that was hard hitting, that was rough, that was a rough go. Both of these guys, great wrestlers. Roddy Piper, young. Ric Flair, young. These guys went at it very hard, man. Great matches, outstanding matches, A+ matches. Never disappointed, not one time. Not one time, man. It was incredible. Then in 1980, excuse me. Then in 1980, Ric Flair was feuding with Jimmy Snuka, Jimmy Superfly Snuka. Great matches, man. Outstanding matches. Another A for Ric Flair. Then in 1981, Ric Flair was feuding with Dusty Rhodes. Ric Flair still, he was winning United States heavyweight championships. He was winning the Mid-Atlantic heavyweight championship. He was winning regional titles, but he was always winning that U.S. Title. Never could get that heavyweight title. Dusty Rhodes just became the NWA champion, and I think Dusty Rhodes held it for like 8 months. Then Ric Flair took that title off of him. That was his first title reign. He beat Dusty Rhodes for that title. I know a lot of people think it was Harley Race was the first one that he beat for the title. People seem to forget because Harley Race, it was such a big thing because that was the first Starrcade and it was a Flair for the gold. And people look at that as his first title reign. But his first world title reign was against, he beat Dusty Rhodes in 1981. And they feuded that whole year between 1980 1981, and Ric Flair was able to overcome Dusty Rhodes, who I thought at that time was the greatest wrestler in the world and hard to beat. Only person that could really beat him was Harley Race. But Ric Flair overcame him, and I'll tell you, that feud never disappointed. All right, man, let me see what Z1 says. Z1 says, people don't realize how good Flair was in the ring and on the mic. No, they don't. No, they don't, Z1. But the whole thing about it, I will give as far as people that's been in this business, the wrestlers that have been in this business. I'm so happy that they're now recognizing. They're recognizing in his greatness, and they are calling him the greatest wrestler of all time. You got people like Hulk Hogan who's acknowledging that stuff. Bret Hart and Triple H and all them was talking about how great Ric Flair was. He was the consummate professional man. He worked that ring. He know how to work that ring, work that mic better than anybody that I've ever seen. And the people that I've seen who was able to do it better than him as far as in-ring performance. He's not the greatest in-ring wrestler that I've ever seen. He's definitely top 10 there, but his overall work made him number one. Everything that he could do on the mic, everything he could do in the ring, the way he made you want to look at him, the swag that he had, everything that he had, man, that the showmanship, everything that he brought to the ring, and was able to keep you focused. That's what made Ric Flair so great. But man, this guy was just, like I said, just flat out outstanding. And like I said, in 81, he had that feud with, had the feud with Dusty Rhodes. In 82, he feuded with Harley Race and Dusty Rhodes off and on. And then 83, he was feuding with Harley Race. And, he was feuding with Harley Race, then Bob Orton, Dick Slater, Bob Orton. Then Bob Orton was collecting, him and Dick Slater collected that bounty on Ric Flair's head. Harley Race put a $25,000 bounty on his head. And Bob Orton, that's when he Ric Flair ended up hurting him because he came back after after Harley Race had did that, and they put him out. Ric Flair came out back, and he broke Bob Orton's arm, and then Bob Orton started wearing that cast, and he wore it for the rest of his career. The man just wrestled a couple months ago in an indie show, and Bob Orton was still wearing that cast. He's been wearing that cast for 39 years, man. Crack me up. But yeah, but Ric Flair, in 1983, he feuded with a lot of great wrestlers again in 1983. 1984, he feuded in 1984, once again, feuded with Dusty Rhodes. In 1984, he feuded with Jimmy, not, dang, he feuded with Boogie Woogie Man, Jimmy Valiant, short feud. Feuded with Magnum TA, feuded with Nikita Koloff. Ric Flair, man, he pretty much done did it all. And, these are just basic people, man. Basic people before I get into what in 85, 86, when he started feuding with Lex Luger, Sting. So that right there from 1975 to 1986, 1987, that 12-year run, he feuded with Ricky Morton. He feuded with Hawk of the Road Warriors. Man, he just feuded with everybody, man. He feuded with Antonio Inoki. Out of Japan. He feuded with Andre the Giant. He feuded with Bruiser Brody. He feuded with he feuded with all the greats. Anybody, man, that was anybody in wrestling back then, Ric Flair was in a feud with. Outside of, you had Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan only stayed in NWA for a little while, and then he went to AWA, and then he went over to WWF. So he really didn't get to feud with him, didn't get to wrestle him. But Ric Flair had wrestled Lanny Poffo, who's, Randy Savage, who became Randy Savage over in Memphis. Ted DiBiase over in Memphis, had great matches with Butch Reed, outstanding matches with Butch Reed and Tony Atlas. As far as black wrestlers who almost beat him, they came very close to beating Ric Flair. But great matches with Junkyard Dog. Ric Flair, man, has done it all. This guy has done it all. Great professional wrestler, and like I say, never disappointed, man. Never disappointed. So I definitely got him number one as the top hit maker in wrestling when it comes to in-ring performance. My man Z1 said, Flair had me walking around with my parent bathrobes trying to beat him. Yeah, no doubt, man. No doubt, Z1. Definitely, man. This guy had so many kids in the neighborhood that wanted to beat him. We walked around the neighborhood, screaming woo, and we wrestled, and everybody wanted to be Ric Flair when they wrestled. Pretty much everybody did, black and white kids. So, man, this guy something special. So yeah, he's my number one hit maker. I'm just gonna go ahead, man. These are off the top of the dome. Number two, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, a Ric Flair nemesis, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. You talking about an incredible wrestler, man. Ricky Steamboat, to me, a better wrestler than Ric Flair, a better in-ring performer than Ric Flair. And man, I love Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Only thing that really turned me a little bit against Ricky Steamboat is Ricky Steamboat. Like I said, in 1989, his last feud with Ric Flair, he started bringing his wife in the ring, and he brought it in too much. At first, the family thing was good, but he continued on with it, and it's something about it. It turned the audience, and I was just like, wow, I could see that coming. I'm like, come on, Rick, don't continue to do this. But Ricky Steamboat, man, is the next best wrestler that I've seen that I will put in that place. I'll put him as my number two wrestler that will continuously give you great matches night in and night out. And, I have to go back all the way to 1977, 1976, 1977, when he was feuding with Ric Flair. Great matches, outstanding matches. This guy was incredible. And then in 1977, man, he teamed with Paul Jones. They won the NWA World Heavyweight Tag Team Championships. And tag team titles. And you talking about a great tag team. This guy was, man, Ricky Steamboat, just outstanding. And Paul Jones was the big dude. He was the fan favorite. He was the big dude that, in the Carolinas, Carolinas and Virginia, that mid-Atlantic area, that everybody, he was the number one face. But Ricky Steamboat took that from Paul Jones. It's one of the reasons I think Paul Jones quickly became a heel. after that. But then Ricky Steamboat won the World Tag Team Championships with my man Chief Wahoo Daniel. Then after that, Ricky Steamboat won the World Tag Team Championships with Jay Youngblood. But besides all of that, and he won some World Tag Team Championships, a couple more with Shane Douglas, and he won the World Tag Team Championship with one other, I can't think of him right now, one other guy he won the World Tag Team Championships with. But Ricky Steamboat, outside of Ric Flair, Ricky Steamboat had great feuds, man, with Jimmy Superfly Snuka. He had a great feud with Roddy Piper. He had great feuds with Ron Bass. He had great feuds with Jake the Snake Roberts before he went up to WWE, and then WWE, he had that great feud with Randy Savage. He had great feuds with Rick Rude, but Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. He wasn't called Ricky the Dragon Steamboat before he went to WWE. That's one thing I never got into. He was always just Ricky Steamboat as far as in the Mid-Atlantic. That's what I grew up with, and I never could get into the Dragon type thing. But, they decided to call him Dragon when he went up there. But Ricky Steamboat, man, is my number two. He's number two on my list as far as always delivering anytime he gets in that ring, man. You can expect a great match. Okay, let's see. Z1 said one of the best performers I've seen. No doubt about that, Z1. But yeah, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat always was prepared. Always was one of these guys, man. Consummate professional that will give you a great match, man. Always gave you your money's worth. Always gave you more than what your money was, more than what you was bargaining for. Always, always great wrestler. My number three, man. I'm gonna go man, another NWA guy, pretty much. My number three, I'm going to go with Barry Windham. I'm going to go with Barry Windham, Blackjack Mulligan's son. Barry Windham, man, incredible. This man went 90 minutes, like 17 nights. I mean, he went like 3 weeks straight, man. Like 17 matches. He went with Ric Flair 90 minutes long, man. And then one time they went one whole week. They wrestled every night for a week. But Ric Flair said he wrestled 8 times out of that week in that week, so he wrestled twice on one day in certain places. Each time he went 90 minutes long. Barry Windham is an outstanding wrestler. Whether you want to call him the Widowmaker or whatever you want to call him, when he went over to WWE. But man, you talking about a great wrestler, Barry Windham, one of the most outstanding performers that I've ever seen. And for a man that big and the things that he could do, it's just incredible. Just incredible. He's another one of these guys that never disappointed. Anytime that you saw Barry Windham match, Barry Windham, another one who wasn't great on the mic. He wasn't gonna appease you there. He wasn't gonna hype up the crowd there. He did the best he could, and he got better when he was with the Horsemen doing that because hey, they had great talkers, but he never disappointed in a match. Barry Windham, man, I'm gonna have to say my number three competitor in and out of that ring, man. And you talking about he's another one that had great feuds. Now my number four guy, man, I'm gonna have to go ahead and go with Dusty Rhodes. Dusty Rhodes, incredible, incredible, overweight, big guy. Every time in that ring, man, I can go all the way back to looking at him in 1974, 1975, when he was wrestling Jack Briscoe. He was wrestling Harley Race, trying to win that world title. I remember one time he was supposed to wrestle Terry Funk. Terry Funk held the title between 1975 1977, and Dusty Rhodes was wrestling Terry Funk. Supposed to had a match against Terry Funk. It was a huge match, man. I forgot where it was at. I'm not sure exactly where it was at, but it was in front of like 18,000 people. Dusty Rhodes, man, come out there. It was the main event. Terry Funk had paid somebody. I can't remember who it was. I think it was who was it? It could have been Ron Bass. It could have been Cowboy Ron Bass or Cowboy Bob. No, it wasn't Bob Ellis. Couldn't have been him. But it was one of these cowboys that came out there. Black Bart or somebody came out there. I'm not sure if it was them because they was kind of young. I can't remember who it was. Was it Stan Hansen? Could have been Stan Hansen. Came out there and broke Dusty Rhodes' arm. This was in 70. Maybe it was in 76. Broke Dusty Rhodes' arm. I felt so bad for Dusty Rhodes, man. This when I became a huge Dusty Rhodes fan at this time. Broke Dusty Rhodes' arm, and Dusty went ahead and went with the match. Referee was asking Dusty not to finish the match, not to go with the match and everything. Dusty was crying and everything, man. Dusty decided to go with the match. And, and Terry Funk, God almighty, man. If you've never seen Terry Funk, back in the 70s. I know, like I was telling my partner, Christopher Burton, the People's Podcaster, I was talking about Terry Funk. We was talking about some wrestlers, and I said he reminded me of Terry Funk, and Chris was like, what? Terry Funk, Terry Funk. But Chris remember, I said, Chris, I had to stop him. I said, Chris, you remember the Terry Funk. I said, your recollection of Terry Funk is the Terry Funk that attacked Ric Flair in 1989 and hit him with a power driver. And, after he had beat Ricky Steamboat, took that title back from him. And I said, and then the Terry Funk who went over to ECW and did all that hardcore stuff. You didn't know him before then. I saw him back in the 70s when he was a young guy and he was the world champion for a couple of years. An NWA world title, you win that title back then, man. That was some serious business, man. To win the NWA World Championship back then, the man that wore that title, I'm gonna go all the way back from Ric Flair on down. Yeah, Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, Harley Race, Gene Kiniski, Dory Funk Jr., Jack Briscoe. Let's see, who else wore Lou Thez, Buddy Rogers. It's only a select few that wore that World's Heavyweight Championship. Dory Funk Jr. Dory Funk held it for 4 years, but you only had a select few that held that title, man. And they are the greatest collection of wrestlers ever. Just great wrestlers. And man, if you held that title, and Terry Funk held it for 2 years, and Terry wasn't as good as his brother Dory, but he's probably the most brutal, probably the toughest outside of Jack Briscoe. Jack Briscoe was a tough cookie, man. And I'm talking about not just in wrestling. He was known to be tough out on the streets. Nobody messing with Jack Briscoe. You don't hear about him like you hear about Ming and Hardy Race and anybody like that, Rick Rude. But Jack Briscoe, nobody in the dressing room would mess with Jack or Jerry Briscoe because nobody could beat him. Those guys was rough, rugged, and I'm talking about street fighters. They know how to do it all, man. They collegiate athletes. They was great. But Jack Briscoe, man, very tough. But Terry Funk, outside of that guy, man, Terry Funk probably, well, I'm not going to say he's rougher than Hardy Race, but Terry Funk, man, was in that same mode. And Terry Funk, man, wow. I don't even know where in the world I was at, to tell you the truth. I'm going to be straight up honest, guys. I forgot, man. I lost my train of thought. But I think I'm at number 4. I was at number 4, my fourth best wrestler. Yeah, Dusty Rhodes. Let me get back to that match. Dusty Rhodes was in that ring with Terry Funk. And Facebook user, I'll get back to you in just a moment. Let me go ahead and finish this one thing that I want to talk about, that match. But my man Dusty Rhodes was in there crying. He asked the referee to go ahead and sanction the match. Go ahead and let the match go off. And he fought Terry Funk that whole time with that broken arm. And Terry knew he had the advantage. He kept coming out to Dusty, but Dusty fought and crying the whole time, man, just whining, just welling on Terry Funk. But Terry Funk overcame him, man. Yeah, that was a great match. But let me go ahead and find my Facebook user, get in here, talk to whoever I'm talking to on Facebook, who's commenting on Facebook. And so give me just a moment here. Let's see. Oh, okay. So Christopher Burton is on. I see Christopher Burton is on. And Melanie McKee. Yeah, talking about somebody that know a lot about wrestling. I figured this was Melanie, but I wanted to make sure. Definitely wanted to make sure. So Melanie, let me turn this thing down. All right. So Melanie McKee says, just found out Midgets with Attitudes wrestling group coming to Silver Moon Sports Lounge in Easley, South Carolina in March. Great place. Great shows they put on. Everybody come out. I hear you. Melanie McKee, love Sylvester, a.k.a. Junkyard Dog. Miss him much. Melanie McKee, miss Dick Slater and Dick Murdoch. Definitely. I like Frank Dusick and Paula Jones and Rufus R. Freight Train Jones. Melanie McKee says Marcus Buff Bagwell out of rehab doing good. That's good. We talked about him earlier tonight. Keep sending prayers and blessings. The Fabulous Freebirds. If you like Terry Funk, you would like Bruce Hart, Bret Hart's brother. He's tough. I definitely know who he is, and I remember him wrestling Melanie McKee. Seen him plenty times before. Melanie McKee, March 11th, ladies wrestling, Easley, South Carolina at Silver Moon Lounge. Definitely got to come out and see that, Melanie McKee. Definitely. But yeah, glad that she's on. I'm glad my man Christopher Burton came on and checking this thing out too. But yeah, Dusty Rhodes, my number 4 wrestler, man, that would never disappoint you. Anytime he went in and out of the ring, that you saw him in and out of the ring, he never disappointed. Man, my number 5th guy, man, I'm going to go ahead and go with Jumping Jim Brunzell out of the AWA. Jim Brunzell, and I'm talking about this Jim Brunzell, the singles Jim Brunzell, or the Jim Brunzell that teamed up with Greg Gagne over in the AWA. This is before the Killer Bees. We was with the Killer Bees. I didn't pay too much attention to him. But Jim Brunzell, man, every time he was in a wrestling ring, especially when he was in the Mid-Atlantic area or he was wrestling solo over in AWA, man, you talking about somebody who could woo the crowd. That guy was flipping incredible. Never seemed to disappoint. A1, A+ wrestler. Man, I can never say anything about my man Jumping Jim Brunzell. He definitely put in the work. He's talking about a great wrestler. Number 6, man, I'm gonna go with Sting. And when I'm talking about Sting, I'm talking about the Surfer Boy Sting. I'm talking about the Sting before the Crow. Okay, the Crow Sting, a little different. Never disappointed me as the Crow Sting, but Surfer Boy Sting never disappointed me in a match. One of the greatest performers that I've ever seen in the ring. So he's my number 6 guy. And right now I'm just on the singles, and I will get the tag teams, man. So I'm just gonna run this down. Number 6, I have Sting. My man, number 7. Number 7, I'm gonna have to say Mr. Wrestling number 2. Wrestled mostly up in Georgia Championship Wrestling, where I saw him. Mr. Wrestling 2, one of the best wrestlers, overall wrestlers that I ever seen. This guy was great, man. Outstanding. White mask with the black inside of it. And we all know Mr. Wrestling Tim Woods wore the white mask. And that's another one. I can put him in the same mode as Mr. Wrestling 2. But Mr. Wrestling 2, I would have to say, is my number 7th guy. Never disappointed me. Anytime that I saw him in the ring, I never was disappointed. So I'm going to have to go with him, number 7. Number 8, I'm going to go ahead and go with Bob Backlund out of the WWE, WWF, WWF, and the WWF. The WWF champion, never disappointed me. I know he was mainly a technical wrestler, big time technical wrestler, and a lot of people, want to say, hey, look like Howdy Doody, look like a schoolboy, or whatever you want to call him. But one of the greatest wrestlers that I've ever seen in my lifetime. So I'm gonna go ahead and give him my number 8 spot. My number 9 spot, man, I'm gonna go with a tough guy out of Canada, Angelo Moscow, and King Kong Moscow, Angelo Moscow. One of the toughest wrestlers I've ever seen in my life. Vicious. Didn't know. Sometimes I hated him, and then when he became a fan favorite, loved him. But man, this guy, you talking about a mean, rugged, tough guy. I have to put him in the same mode as Bruiser Brody, but I never was disappointed in the things that he could do inside the ring. This guy was great, man. And if don't take him outside of the ring, because you was gonna lose that street fight. But yeah, definitely Bruiser Brody, man. This guy was outstanding. So yes, my number 9 favorite wrestler, man, that never disappointed when I seen him in the ring, man. I'm about to do a flip flop here because I was gonna put somebody else's number 10, but number 10, I'm gonna have to go with Harley Race. Harley Race never disappointed when he was in the ring. Harley Race was outstanding competitor in and out of that ring. Never disappointed, man. Incredible wrestler. And I could have put him there or my man Ernie Ladd, but I'm gonna go ahead and go with Harley Race. And let me go ahead and throw some honorable mentions in. And these guys definitely should be in the top 10, but they're not because I'm just going off the top of my head. But let me go ahead and go with Ernie Ladd, Ernie the Cat Ladd. Never disappointed me, man, in the ring. He did get older. When he got older, his knees got bad, and he wasn't able to move as fast as he did before, but still continued to devastate in the ring and intimidate guys, man, and come in there and put together great matches. Another one, Ted DiBiase. Ted DiBiase, and I'm talking about Ted DiBiase, the Ted DiBiase before the $1 Million Man. Ted DiBiase, one of the best scientific, technical wrestlers that I ever seen in my life. Great wrestler, man. Did so many incredible things in and out of that ring. I was never disappointed with Ted DiBiase. So he's one of my honorable mentions. Another honorable mention I'm going to have to say is Rick Martel. And I'm talking about Rick Martel before he went to WWE. And, I'm not trying to be, harp on WWE, but WWE turned these guys into kickers and punchers. That's what Vince went into. So let me go into my 14th, and he could be higher, man. Stunning Steve Austin. And yes, I said stunning Steve Austin, not Stone Cold Steve Austin. Love Stone Cold Steve Austin, but Stone Cold Steve Austin loved him, loved watching him and things like that. But Stone Cold Steve Austin became a kick, punch, stun guy. That's what he was in WWE. But when he was with WCW, Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, my man Stone Cold Steve Austin would put those moves together and beat you in a wrestling match. One of the best wrestlers that I've ever seen. Number 15, man, Bray Wyatt's dad, Mike Rotunda. Mike Rotunda never disappointed me in a match. This guy, hey, you like scientific wrestling, you like the technical stuff, you want to get down to that, and somebody, man, who has some of the best forearm shots ever in the business, this guy knew how to do it without breaking the rules. One of the greatest wrestlers I ever seen. So right there, man, I'm just going to go ahead and leave that as my top 15. I have a lot more, and I'll probably come back and revisit this thing a little bit later on and come down with a list and put the top 20 list together. But I'm going to go ahead and go with that. It's my top 15. That's just coming off the top of my head. Before I get into the tag teams. Right now, I'm going to talk about, in just a few minutes, I'm going to talk about the tag teams. But let me go ahead and get some comments together here. My man Z1 said, yeah, one of the best performers I ever seen. And he talking about Ricky Steamboat. He said, I think the big thing missing now is the dedication from the mainstream wrestlers. Definitely. Back in the day, they may have partied, but hey, showed in the ring. Yes, they did. Yes, they did, man. Every time when the bell sounded, I don't care. They can have drink in them or whatever. These guys went out there and they performed. They was able to deliver in the ring. And a lot of these guys today, they just can't do it. And I mean, every now and then we see it, and when we see it, we always, oh my gosh, man, that was an incredible match. And it's because we very rarely see these matches like that. But all right, man, let me go ahead and get with Melanie McKeith or whoever else, and I see some other people joined in on Facebook. Rick Henry is watching. Appreciate it, Rick Henry. All right, Melanie McKeith said Angelo Moscow Jr. was like a daddy to me. She said him and Daddy Abdullah the Butcher. Yeah, Abdullah the Butcher, man. Oh, that's another one. He's another honorable mention. As far as I never seen a bad match with Abdullah the Butcher, even though Abdullah the Butcher had been wrestling since 1958. So a lot of people don't realize how old that man is. That man is very old, and I didn't see a bad match from him. A slow down match. I say a C plus match from Abdullah the Butcher until this man was well into his maybe late 50s, early 60s. All right. Ernie Ladd was precious. Melanie McKeith said Thunderbolt Patterson too. Oh, wow. Whoa. Yes, no doubt. Love Butch Reed too. Yes. And then Melanie McKeith says August 2023, The Gathering. Fan Fest in Charlotte. Yes, I'm looking at that, Melanie. We definitely got to get out to that. But yeah, definitely appreciate everybody joining me, man. Here on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, hit that like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell, ding, 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 so you know when we come on like random times just like these. And man, if you're on Facebook, hit that like, share, join. Man, and if you on Twitch, that like, share, do the same thing that you do on YouTube. Hit that notification bell, and so you know when we're gonna be on. And if you on Twitter, that like, share, tweet, and retweet. But man, let me go ahead and get to some of the tag teams. And I'm gonna talk about tag teams that never disappointed me. Doesn't matter, anytime they went into the ring. Daddy. Hold on for a second. Okay, all right. Sorry about that. Talking to my son there for a minute, but yeah, tag teams. Let's go ahead and roll with tag teams. Best tag teams I ever seen. It's not the best tag teams. I'm not gonna say best tag teams I ever seen, but I always knew I was gonna get a good match anytime I saw these tag teams. So let me go ahead and go with number one, the number one tag team, and I say I knew I never was gonna see a bad match. Usually when this tag team got into the ring, I knew I never was gonna see a bad match. Anytime I saw the Steiner brothers. I'm gonna go with Rick and Scott Steiner as the number one tag team. I knew for a fact anytime I watched these guys, man, team up, I never was gonna see a bad match, and they hardly ever disappointed. And if they did disappoint, it was slightly or whatever. But man, these guys always delivered. So I'm gonna go ahead and go with my guys, man, Rick and Scott Steiner as the number one tag team that never disappointed. These are the top hit makers, man, when it comes to tag team wrestling. They were the top hit makers that I've seen in my lifetime as far as tag team wrestling. My number two tag team, I'm going to have to go with the Anderson brothers, Gene and Ole Anderson. Now, Lars Anderson was part of the Minnesota Wrecking Crew, but he did not wrestle much with him back in the 70s and 80s. He did back in the 60s wrestle with him a lot. But Ole and Gene Anderson of the Minnesota Wrecking Crew is my number two tag team. that's anytime you saw these guys, man, they was like perfection in a ring. So I'm gonna go with them. Number two, number three, I'm gonna go with Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood. You talking about a great tag team that was gonna give you a great tag team match in every single time. It was those two, Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood. My number 14, Jack and Jerry Briscoe. Jack and Jerry Briscoe, great tag team, a very good tag team. You know, Jack Briscoe, one of the greatest singles wrestlers of all time, definitely top five. Not a lot of people don't talk about him, but he's definitely one of the best wrestlers ever. And Jerry Briscoe was too. But man, definitely that is my number 4 tag team. Number 5, man, I'm gonna go with the Road Warriors. I know a lot of people, the Road Warriors, the Road Warriors. But man, the Road Warriors did disappoint me at certain times. But that's when Hulk started having that drinking problem. They kind of like slipped a little bit. But the Road Warriors did, they did disappoint every now and then, but hardly ever, man. For the most part, 96% of the time, they gave you a great match, especially before they went to WWE. I hate to keep going up on WWE and say these guys, a lot of these guys changed or whatever, but man, the Road Warriors definitely, impressed every time they got in the ring. Number 6, man, I probably should have put this team before the Road Warriors. The Rock and Roll Express. I'm gonna have to go with the Rock and Roll Express as the number 6 team, man. These guys deliver each and every time, man. You can't forget about those great feuds that they had with the Midnight Express. Man, never will be duplicated. And speaking of Midnight Express, they're gonna be my number 17, number 7 tag team. These guys was great in and out of the ring. And guys, it's late right now, so I'm gonna come back a little bit later on and I'm gonna expound on these teams just like I did on Ric Flair and talk about Ric Flair and then Rick Steamboat a little bit about their feuds. And I'm gonna talk about each one of these teams' feuds. Definitely want to go over that. So I want to get in depth, and it's probably going to be a long, a long, what I'm trying to say, a long video when I do this. But I definitely will go over the feuds that these guys had and what made them so significant, what made them so great. But man, you talking about a well-oiled machine was the Midnight Express. Number 8, I'm gonna have to go with Tony Atlas and Kevin Sullivan. Kevin Sullivan and Tony Atlas. What a great tag team. What a great tag team. National tag team champions. Did that for like anywhere from 6 months to a year. Great tag team, man. These guys was outstanding. Never seen a bad match with those two involved with it. Number 9, man, I'm gonna have to go with Doom. Butch Reed and Ron Simmons. Great tag team, man. Great tag team. Wish they could have lasted a little bit longer, but they didn't. So number 10, man, I'm gonna have to go with Superstar number 1 and Superstar number 2. My number 10 tag team, as far as the best tag teams I've ever seen. And these guys were great workers, and man, they never disappointed. Anytime I saw these guys in the match, then I'm gonna have to go with my honorable mentions. I'm gonna have to go with the British Bulldog and Davey Boy Smith, my number 11. So this is just honorable mention. Go with those two. Then I'm gonna have to go with the Hart Foundation, my number 12. Number 13, I'm gonna go with Dino Bravo and Guido Bungo or whatever his name was, but I saw them back in 1975, 1976 over in AWA, not AW, IWA, International Wrestling Association. Those guys was great. Man, another honorable mention, I'm going to give Bruiser and Crusher out of AWA. I didn't see those guys till he was older. Man, my number 15 tag team, I'm going to have to go with Pat Patterson and Ray Stevens. Great tag team. But it's so many great tag teams, man. I'm going to have to go ahead and throw Chief Wahoo Daniel and Paul Jones in there. That was a devastating tag team, too. But it's so many. And it's so many that I'm not naming right now. And when I sit down and really think about it, man, I'm going to come up with a different list, I'm pretty sure. But all these guys will be on that list. But it's so many. Incredible wrestlers all these guys are legendary. They're legendary, top tier wrestlers. Yesterday when I was talking, I had that big podcast yesterday. It was a big podcast. A couple hundred people, chimed in to check that out. Well, almost 200 people on YouTube, and had a lot of people. I had a few people over here on Facebook, but that was a pretty big podcast. And I talked about the realities of wrestling today. But we sat there and and a lot of people chimed in and asked me, do I think we're going to be talking about these guys that's out there now, 20, 30, they said we're going to, and some said we will be talking about these guys 30 years from now, 20, 30 years from now. And I said, I don't know. I really don't know. Because look, back then, man, I could record when video recorders came out. We got one. First one we got was like in '79. I would record those matches, man, watch them over and over. A lot of different wrestling matches. All my friends did. They would ask to borrow tapes to watch these matches and watch pay-per-views or watch closed circuit TV matches that we've already seen. We watch those matches over and over. What matches are you watching over and over today? We got streaming services and everything. We can go back and watch this stuff. How many matches are you going back and watching today? I'm not going back, man, to watch Eddie Kingston versus Orange versus Orange Kool-Aid, Flavor Aid, or whatever you want to call them. I don't want to see Pockets and Eddie Kingston again. You know, I'm not going back to see John Moxley beating up Dante Martin. You know, I'm not doing that. You know, I'm sorry. I'm not going back to see Bryan Danielson versus Lee Moriarty. I'm not doing that. You know, I'm not going back to see Sheamus versus Ricochet. I'm not doing that. You know, only people I can really say I'll go back to see Gunther versus Ilya Dragunov. I wouldn't mind seeing that again. Let me see. Drew McIntyre versus Sheamus, a pretty decent match. You do have a few matches out there, but for the most part, most of these guys, nobody wants to see. And I've heard other podcasters say the same thing. Man, I'm not going back to watch those matches, but I definitely go back and see the Steiner brothers against Lex Luger and Sting. I definitely go back to see Ric Flair against Shawn Michaels. I definitely go back to see Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels. Definitely goes back to see Ricky Steamboat against Ric Flair. I definitely go back to see Stan Hansen versus Bruiser Brody. I definitely go back to see Bam Bam Bigelow versus Big Van Vader. You know, these matches, man, classics. You can go back and you can watch these matches and still get the same type of joy, same kind of joy. It's not that these guys don't have talent, because a lot of these guys today have more talent, way more talent. They can do a lot more than what those guys done back in the day, but they just don't have the heart. They don't have the heart, and you know, and you when they don't have the heart, you just don't feel the soul of that person. They don't have that, you know, that body and soul put into that match, and you can feel it. You can feel it. And you can tell. And man, it just looked really shallow. All the things that they're doing today. You know, hey, I like it. I like it. I'm a fan of what they're doing in wrestling today. But hey, I have to say the promoters and bookers are just as much to blame as the athletes, as the wrestlers, and probably more to blame when it boils down to it. So let's see. All right, let me see if I got anything else here. Oh yeah, Harlem Heat, Harlem Heat. Man, Harlem Heat was really good. Z1 wasn't never my favorite, but every time they got in the ring, they never disappointed me. So yeah, Harlem Heat definitely should have mentioned them. So I appreciate you putting that out there. And as far as Harlem Heat, let me throw Booker T in there with the honorable mention as far as the singles wrestlers. Booker T never disappointed. And when I go back to revamp this, I'm sure he'll be in my top 10. Never disappointed. Chris Benoit is another one. Even though he did what he did, man, that man never disappointed me when he was inside the ring. Never. Great wrestler. So, and the only reason I thought about that is because that 4 out of 7, that was the last 4 out of 7 that I seen before they just had this 4 out of 7 between the Elite, Pop Penta, and Ray Phoenix. They had that 4 out of 7. It paled in comparison to the last one that I saw over in WCW. They had a 4 out of 7 between Chris Benoit and Booker T. That thing was incredible. So that made me think about Chris Benoit. But one of the best competitors as far as every time he got in the ring, man. He never disappointed. But yeah, appreciate you, Z1, hitting me on that. All right, let me go ahead and get with Melanie McKeith. Before I get off here, been on here for 48 minutes. Before I get off here, man, let me get with my friend Melanie McKeith. All right. Okay. Melanie McKeith says Jimmy Garvin and Michael P.S. Hayes, Ole and Gene Anderson. Well, you know, Ole and Gene Anderson, definitely. Jimmy Garvin and Michael P.S. Hayes. Yeah. The Fabulous Freebirds, I can't say they didn't disappoint me every time they got in the ring. I can't say that. Now they gave, I expected more from the Fabulous Freebirds. Terry Gordy. I'm just going to talk about the original lineup. Michael P.S. Hayes, Terry Gordy, and Buddy Roberts. I expected more from those guys. Every time I saw those guys in the ring, they gave me C performances. Most times I saw them. So that's just what I'm going to say. But that does not mean they wasn't a great tag team, Melanie. I'm not saying that. They was an outstanding tag team, one of the greatest tag teams of all time. But for some reason, they was um, too interested in showboating when it boils down to it. I've seen a lot of teams showboat. I've seen a lot of players showboat, a lot of wrestlers showboat. You know, Ric Flair showboated all the time, but he took care of business and he took care of it in spectacular. He put on a spectacular performance. He took care of it in spectacular fashion. Put it that way. Michael P.S. Hayes and all that, man. Come on, man. I'm just like, you guys are better than that. But when they was on, they was on. But yeah, they was too uh, they was too flamboyant for me. Michael P.S. Hayes with the hair, pushing the hair up and just wanted to dance around the ring and everything. They was better than what they put out in the ring. They only gave you this certain amount. They wasn't like the Rock and Roll Express. Rock and Roll Express gave you everything. That's what I wanted from them. Didn't get it from them. But yeah, they are going down as one of the greatest tag teams of all time. There's no doubt about that. Jimmy Garvin, great wrestler, man, and pretty much gave you everything. Even though he's flamboyant, gave you almost everything that he could give in the ring. So he definitely deserved an honorable mention, especially Ronnie Garvin, his uncle Ronnie Garvin. A lot of people see him as as his brother, but I think he's his uncle in real life. I'm not sure. All right, Johnny Ace and Shane Douglas. Shane Douglas, he was okay. He gave 100% every time he was in the ring. Johnny Ace did too. Johnny Ace was okay. Not my favorite too, but they definitely noted, and I can't forget anything that they did. Every time I seen them in the ring, their matches, I don't forget anything that they did in the ring. So I definitely like them for that. But uh, I can't say they disappointed me in the ring, but they never was that gold standard. They wasn't the hit makers. Just put it that way. I never seen neither one of them as hit makers. I thought Johnny Ace had the potential to be a hit maker, and Shane Douglas too, to a point. But one thing about me, if you was a wrestler and I thought you should have got over, and you wrestled for years or you wrestled for a long time and you just kept coming up short, it made me mad. And I didn't like you. I didn't like you. I don't care if you was fan favorite or whatever. I didn't like you. I got to the point where I didn't like you. And I'm gonna talk about somebody here on the indie scene. I'm sure you know him, Melanie McKeith. And this one thing I need to tell him next time I see him. But George Soft. I remember George Soft. I used to watch him every week almost on Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling up there in Georgia Championship Wrestling. He almost won all the time. It was almost winning. He would lose. Never could get over. And I was such a big fan, it kind of like pissed me off. I got to the point where I couldn't stand it. And then when I was reacquainted with him out here on the indie scene, I wouldn't really talk to him because I was disappointed in him. And I just can't. It was hard for me to get over that. But hey, George made a lot of money in the ring. He had to do what he had to do, man. Hey, they was asking him to lose. But George Soft, man, he had so much potential. And he done great things on the indie scene. It's just I think he could have did more on the bigger stage, in my opinion, man. This guy was great. All right. Yeah, she said Midnight Express. Yeah, definitely. Great guys and friends. Ron Simmons and Butch Reed. She said, my faves, Melanie McKeith said, my faves, Harlem Heat, Booker and Stevie Ray. Yeah, Booker T and Stevie Ray. And Z1 hit me up on that. Yeah, Melanie McKeith. A lot of these guys you're talking about will be at FanFest in Charlotte in August at University Hilton. Wow. Melanie McKeith says, I watched the Hardy Boys earlier on a Halloween special on cable. Was hilarious. Fun to watch. Was called Happy Hardy Halloween. Was cool. Melanie McKeith. Chris Benoit was very much misunderstood. Had a brain disease. They found in his autopsy. Yes, they did, Melanie. Yes, they did. All right, Melanie McKeith. Steve Dr. Death Williams was awesome. Yes, definitely. Great friend. Very good. Never forget. I will never forget his matches. He was just so devastating. I really can't rank him as far as what he was doing or whatever. But no, he never disappointed. I just never was a huge fan. I really never was a huge fan, except for, certain occasions I was, depending on who he was wrestling. Ronnie was Jimmy Garvin's brother. Okay. Hmm. Hmm. I don't know. I don't know. I rode in the car with Ronnie Garvin, and I think we asked about Jimmy. I'm not sure. We rode in his limousine. Uh, so I was thinking, man, they might have been. I think they are brothers. I think they are. I think you're right, Melanie. I really do. But I think he's brother-in-law with somebody. I can't remember. Maybe uh, I don't know. You would know, Melanie. You would know. Steve, Dr. Dale Williams played for Oklahoma Sooners. Yeah, I remember that. I remember that. Yes, he did. He was a great Oklahoma Sooner. Great football player. No ands, ands, or buts about it. All right. Z1 says, Harry, did you say Midnight Express? I sure did. They was my number 8. They was my number 8 tag team. They was my number 8 tag team right after Rock and Roll Express. Or was they number 7? I think Rock and Roll was 6 and they were 7. One of the two. They was either 7 or 8. But yeah, Midnight Express, definitely, man. One of the smoothest, best tag teams. It didn't matter if it was Dennis Condrey and Bobby Eaton or Stan Lane and Bobby Eaton. Both sets of Midnight Express was very impressive, very good. But man, yeah. So I'm at the 56-minute mark. Woo! But man, yeah, these are the guys. And let me go ahead and say a few women wrestlers, man. Let me talk about a few women that never disappointed me when I watched them in a match. First person I'm gonna say is Charlotte Flair, number 1. Uh, and hey, that's saying a lot. I'm putting over my number 2, Medusa Michelli. So a lot of people know as Alundra Blaze, but I'm gonna go ahead and call her Medusa. That's the first thing I knew is Medusa. Never was disappointed when I saw her in the match, even though she wrestled back in the day. These women today are more skilled, but I never was disappointed when I seen those two in the match. Number 3, I'm gonna go with Becky Lynch. Is gonna be my number 3. Never disappointed anytime I see her in the match. Never. My number 4, I'm gonna have to go with who am I gonna go with? Number 4. Number 4, I'm gonna go with Hikaru Shida. In my number 5, I'm gonna go with Serena D. My number 6, I'm gonna go with Bianca Belair. Number 7th, man. Who? Who's that? Who's the girl with no lips? DSK keeps saying don't have no lips. I'm about to go with Bailey, number 7. Number 8, man, I'm gonna go with Io Shirai, Io Sky. I'm gonna go with her. That's number 8. My number 9, I'm gonna have to go with Fabulous Moolah. Number 10, let me go with dang, what in the heck is her name? I'm gonna go with Jacqueline, at number 10. So that's my top 10 for the women. Z1 cracking up. Yeah. But yeah, let me go ahead and see Melanie. I see she continue with some stuff here. All right. Dirty Dick Murdoch. Captain Redneck. Great wrestler. I used to love to watch wrestle Melanie. Never disappointed. Never disappointed. I will say that. So I will throw him in there as an honorable mention. Let's see. Mickey James, yes, great, very good. You said Penny Banner, and is it Penny Baker? I'm pretty sure. Moolah, Bambi, yes. Wendy Richter, nah. Wendy Richter, no. Couldn't stand Wendy Richter. I liked her. I did. I liked her. And I mean, she was friends with, somebody that was real good friends, who was friends with me for a little while. Cyndi Lauper, I DJ'd at one of the clubs. And she came and sung at and everything like that. And, she was very nice and all that. Hey, Wendy Richter, that was around the time she went and managed Wendy Richter. I was a DJ. And Wendy, good wrestler, but she just never. I just, I never could connect with. I never could connect with her style. Dark Journey, yes, Dark Journey definitely. Baby Doll didn't wrestle enough for me, but when she did, she definitely put on the show. One of my favorite, probably my favorite valet of all time, Baby Doll. Jacqueline, yeah, I already mentioned Jacqueline. Penny Banner was Johnny Weaver's wife. She wrestled. Is it Penny Banner? I know he was married to a Penny, but I thought it was Penny Baker that he was married to. Yeah, so let me look that up, Melanie. You could be right. I believe you. I believe you, but I don't know, Penny. Gosh, you know a lot, girl. You know a lot, young lady. You make me mad. You make me mad. A female that can match me, man, in history. Yes, Penny Banner, who matches me historically. Man, wow. You match, I'm telling you, up there with Danny Paris. You up there with me and Danny Paris when it comes to historical things. And that's great. That's outstanding. That's outstanding. So I definitely need to get you on. I did a couple recordings with Danny earlier today about wrestling. I need to get you on and do some recordings with you, Melanie. You got a lot of knowledge. Definitely got a lot of knowledge. But man, I appreciate each and every one of you guys joining me tonight. If you're on Facebook, hit that like, share, join. If you're on YouTube, like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell, ding, 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 so you know when we're coming on like random times like these. Do the same thing on Twitch. And if you on Twitter, hit that like, share, tweet, and retweet. And Melanie, I'm gonna answer a few more things, and then I'm gonna get on Alpha here. Told you, I've been there. I could write a book. Yeah, I see that, Melanie. God almighty. Wow, I don't even know how old you are. I mean, I think I'm older than you. I don't know how old you are, but wow, wow, you have a lot of knowledge, a lot of knowledge. Have much respect for that. Definitely. Because you got a lot of people out here that's running around, especially on this indie scene. And I'm talking about on the local indie scene that we're on. Don't know nothing. Don't know nothing. They don't know the history. They don't know the history of wrestling. And they out here, they involved in the wrestling scene. I don't mind it with the wrestlers, but these guys that come out here and act like they know everything, don't know nothing, it really ticks me off. All right, 52. I'm 4 years older. Okay. Well, I just turned 56. So, but yeah. So, Melanie, wow, appreciate you 100%. And yeah, you know your stuff. You know your stuff. That's great. That's great. But hey, I am out of here. You guys have a good night, man. Stay straight up. See you guys later. Peace.